It's Tuesday, October 6th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Stop using the former Democratic Labour Party government as a scapegoat. That's the message former Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite is sending to the current administration after Prime Minister Mia Mottley placed the blame of Barbados' spending blacklisting by the European Union at the feet of the former DLP government. During a political meeting at the Glebe on Sunday, the Prime Minister said that the former government repeatedly refused to answer requests from authorities in North America and Europe for tax information on international business companies that operate from Barbados. However, Brathwaite said it was time for Ms. Mottley to stop with what he described as the immature blaming of the DLP for every challenge her government faces. He told Barbados Today that government was a continuum and the same legal drafters in the Attorney General's chambers and technocrats in the Ministry of International Business who were there when the new government came to office in 2018 are still there and are aware of the challenges. As such, he said it made no sense for Prime Minister Mottley to blame the DLP now. In other news, parents have been identified as the main source of illegal drugs and alcohol for primary school children. This was one of the findings of the National Primary School Survey 2020 conducted by the National Council of Substance Abuse entitled Drug Use and Related Issues Among the Primary School, which was released yesterday. Research assistant at the NCSA and survey coordinator Laura Foster revealed that drug use at the primary school level remained minimal and was primarily experimental. She said the results of the survey, which was the third of its kind, following similar surveys in 2006 and 2009, showed prevalence rates had generally decreased since 2009.
What we found was that friends and family were generally the most common sources for all of the substances. In terms of tobacco and Fanta, it was friends. For alcohol, energy drinks, and marijuana, it was the family. In terms of inhalants, you can see that it was the home, very closely followed by the family. Now, in our full report, you will see that we actually broke the family category down into parents, siblings, and other relatives. And when we did this, what we found was that parents were actually the most common family source for drugs such as marijuana, alcohol, energy drinks, and inhalants, while other relatives were the main source in terms of the family for tobacco, cigarettes, and Fanta. In terms of locations of use across the board, we found that it was the home for all substances. That was the top location. And this stands to reason, given the fact that one, the family was one of the most common sources for drugs, and also the young age of our participants, as they are quite likely spending much of their out-of-time school at home or in its close environs.
Among some of the NCSA's recommendations was for drug prevention education to be increased for primary school students of all ages.
At this stage, drug use at the primary school level remains minimal and it is primarily experimental. Prevalence rates have generally decreased since 2009. However, efforts should be made to increase drug prevention education for primary school students. And we want to see energy drinks, Fanta, lean, vaping, and social determinants of drug use incorporated into our prevention efforts at this level. We also want consideration to be given to a coordinated and structured approach to drug prevention education, which involves the NCSA, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. And we want this approach to be buttressed with initiatives which target the parents and the wider community. And lastly, we want to see children's access to drugs further restricted.
Minister of Home Affairs Wilfred Abrams described the findings as alarming, but lauded the NCSA for its work. However, he said all stakeholders must do their part to prevent the early onset of drug use among the nation's children.
We need to stop underestimating our children. They are way more intelligent than we give them credit for. With intelligence and development comes curiosity. It is not something we should attempt to stymie in children. We should not attempt to stop them from being curious. We should not attempt to stop them from asking questions. we should not attempt to stop them from investigating ourselves. Rather, we must recognize their early development now and speak to them in a language that they can understand, so that they know when choices are presented to them what is right and what is wrong, so that they have the confidence and the strength to say no when no is the only appropriate answer. Therefore, for us to concentrate on primary school children and the findings, I don't want to go too much into the findings, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but the findings, quite frankly, are alarming. And the findings suggest and support that this study was absolutely necessary, and it was absolutely necessary at this point in time. In fact, to be honest, I think we would have suffered if we had left this study any later.
The Queen Elizabeth Hospital's Executive Chairman, Juliet Bino Sutherland, is reporting that 46 Ghanaian nurses are now employed at the healthcare institution. She told Barbados Today that the nurses who arrived in the country on July 30th have been providing their services for several weeks and have been well received by the general public.
The nurses have been oriented, have completed their orientation, and have started working in their various specialty areas across the hospital. They've been so far well received, and in fact, I think a social activity is being planned between them and their Barbadian preceptors this coming weekend. Each nurse has been assigned a local Barbadian nurse to be a preceptor, Preceptor, a preceptor, which is a nurse who supports their transition to the hospital, to practicing in a new environment, to dealing with a new culture and a workplace setting. So those nurses will be precepted for a period of about 3 months.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from our regional neighbors now, the people of Belize will elect a new government on November 11th. The announcement came via a press release issued yesterday from the Prime Minister's office. The National Assembly will be dissolved today, and a nomination day will take place on October 21st. Following the announcement, opposition leader John Briceño declared that his People's United Party was not only ready for the general election, but ready to govern as well.
Well, first of all, I think this was the worst kept secret in the entire country of Belize, because everybody was talking about the 11th of November. I know that the announcement has been made. It's almost anticlimactic that the Prime Minister finally made the announcement. But before I get into that, let me just quickly say that I wish the Prime Minister well. He's retiring from politics, and I wish him well and his family. As to whether we're ready, we've been ready for some time. We've been doing a lot of work over the past 5 years on my leadership and in reorganizing the party, uniting the party, putting the groundwork, because a lot of what you see today is because of all of the groundwork that we've been doing, visiting the communities, the villages, the towns, the cities, for us to be able to be in a position where we would be ready to take on the reins of government.
And finally, on the international scene, U.S. President Donald Trump returned to the White House on Monday night after leaving the hospital where he was being treated for COVID-19. We get more in this report from Reuters TV.
President Donald Trump departed Walter Reed National Military Medical Center on Monday and was flown back to the White House, where he walked up the stairs of the South Portico and removed his mask after a 3-day stay at a military hospital where a team of doctors treated him for COVID-19. The photo op at the White House drew heavy criticism on social media. So too did a tweet Trump sent earlier in the day from the hospital that said, quote, "Don't be afraid of COVID."
Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. I stood out front. I led. Nobody that's a leader would not do what I did. And I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay. And now I'm better, and maybe I'm immune. I don't know.
COVID-19 has killed more than 1 million people worldwide and more than 209,000 in the United States alone, the highest death toll of any country.
Though he may not entirely be out of the woods yet, the team and I agree that all our evaluations, and most importantly, his clinical status, support the president's safe return home.
While Dr. Sean Conley said Trump was not out of the woods, he told reporters the 74-year-old president will continue to receive world-class medical care around the clock at the White House.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.